Hey there. So, I wanted to take a quick break. I'm working today to talk a little bit about love. I was reminded yesterday about a few things. First of all, I've been watching on the news, seeing on the news everybody, that has passed away from the floods over in Texas. I've been watching it since it happened, and it's just been really, really horrifying to watch. It's very sad. It's more than sad. Like, it's the kind of sadness that really grips your heart. Like, it just grips you. And I've been praying for everybody over in Texas and everybody affected by those floods, all the young children and everything, and as well as others. I feel like I'm constantly in prayer, because anytime I feel anything traumatic or that really pulls at my heart, I always stop and say a prayer, because I know how important prayer is. I know that God hears our prayers, and I pray specifically for God to send them comfort and peace, the peace that excels all knowledge, for their Holy Spirit, for His Holy Spirit to cover them like a blanket during this time. And anybody that's going through anything traumatic, like over across the world, which we know about the fighting over there, really everywhere. But when you watch the news and you see how these things are really affecting people, real people, and how it's affecting their family, it's very, very hard. At least it's hard for me, at least, to just not want to reach out, or to not have your own heart break. Like the other day, I saw on the news where somebody's 3-year-old shot the teenager. I guess it was their older sibling, while the teenager was sleeping. So apparently the gun was not put up in a safe space, and that parent lost their child, their older child. So people go through a lot of things. People go through a lot of traumatic things. Trauma happens every single day on this planet. And grief can really stricken a person and can change a person. Not everybody goes through something traumatic, but I would say the devil does try to get to you somehow, some way. He will try to get to you by causing you to go through something traumatic and hoping to break your spirit, to blame God, to think that there's not a God, and to turn to drugs and alcohol and sex, or whatever other means, whatever means he can to break your spirit, basically, and to continue for you to self-sabotage and things like that, and not live your best life, for sure, right? It's like the devil, he tries to get to you in any way that he can. And if he can't get to you young, by doing something traumatic to you while you're young, he'll make sure that you cross paths with someone who has been through a lot of trauma. Because hurt people, right? People that are hurt on the inside, they hurt others. For example, when people do like a mass murder, and they just, like they'll bring, a weapon of some sort or whatever, and you know that person is mental, or they have had some sort of trauma happen to them, and so therefore they want to hurt others, right? And it's almost like the devil will try to get to you some way, shape, or form, and break your spirit while you're here on earth. And so the police officer was that was given announcements on the news the other day. This was the other day. I heard him say something that I was so happy, so happy that he said. And it was an older, I don't know if he was a police officer or mayor or something. I don't actually know who he was, but I just heard him speaking on the news talking about the flood victims in Texas. And he said to everybody, he said, yeah, we're going to be crying about this for a long time. And he said, go ahead and cry and shed your tears, because tears are medicine. He said, tears are medicine. He said, your tears are your medicine. And I was so happy that he said that. Number one, came from a man. And number two, he was speaking truth. That when you go through something traumatic, or when you experience something sad, or you see something sad, or your friend is going through something sad or whatnot, that it is proper and it is the right thing to do to cry. But more than proper, it's medicine to your soul. And I have known people who have said to me things like, I can't cry. I can't cry. I don't cry. I never cry. And to be honest, when I hear that, I am very scared of that person. That person, I'm actually scared. I'm actually scared of that person. Because a person who can't cry or doesn't cry is a person that bottles up all and any fear and emotion, shame, or whatever they're going through. They bottle up and they shove it down, they push it down. And I know that that's the kind of person that hurts others. That he's not addressing his feelings or emotions or whatnot, and eventually they do come out, usually in a explosive type of way. I was taught that from a young age, to not bottle up your feelings and emotions, but then I also learned in the scriptures that God doesn't want us to do that. You know, I learned that also from when you read your scriptures. You know, Jesus Christ, when he came on earth, and I've shared this before on my channel, I've shared this before, that Jesus Christ, he shed tears while he was here on earth, and he was perfect. He was perfect. And yet he cried actual tears for Lazarus when he heard that Lazarus had died, and he heard the cries of everybody else, the sadness. The Bible talks about how he really felt pity for them. He felt sadness. And he was moved to tears. And if you don't know that story, you know, it's in the Bible, but it's a real story. You know, that was Jesus Christ, you know. And the example of that was that he cried even though he resurrected Lazarus. He knew he was going to resurrect Lazarus. He knew he was going to resurrect him. And he knew he had the capability of doing that. He knew he could do it. He knew he had the power to do it. He knew he would do it. He also knew Lazarus was going to die. He also knew in advance, he had prior knowledge. He had prior knowledge that Lazarus was going to die. Okay? And he still cried and still shed tears. Still. And he did that, and he allowed himself to be moved with the moment of sadness. He allowed himself to go with that flow, like the waves. Like I like to share with people your feelings, and your feelings, your sadness or feelings of joy or whatever, they are like waves of the sea. Okay, the waves that come and they go, come and they go. All feelings and emotions go through the cycle of coming and going, coming and going. Happiness and joy does not last like all day long, as far as like ecstatic or having that extreme high of happiness, or even sadness, right? stability or having an equilibrium of your feelings is really homeostasis or whatever, was what you really want to go for, as being stable, right? But like when you feel something happy, or you see somebody calls you, somebody gives you a gift or whatever, and you're happy, right? You're happy in that moment, you're like, yay, or you're happy to see somebody, hey, and you're all happy, right? But the moment passes, right? And then you go back to your state. And it's the same with sadness. And then there's some grief. There's things that happen that are extreme grief. And you will feel it for a long time as you are reminded constantly that the person you're sad over is missing. It doesn't matter who it is. A daughter, or, like a child or a parent, a family member, anybody that you're close to, cousin, whoever. As you are reminded or triggered throughout your day that this person is missing from your life, that you can't talk to them, they're not here, right? It will trigger flashes of sadness and a reminder of the trauma. And, you'll probably cry or have some tears, right? But the person that can't do that or doesn't do that is a person that's not able to process their feelings and emotions properly. Or if they start to feel that, they go ahead and pop a pill, or they light up, some of that plant medicine, or, they drink or whatever, right? Because they don't want to ride the wave of that feeling. Because riding that wave usually includes crying and expressing tears. But if you can look at your tears differently as medicine, and if you can look at your tears as a badge of honor for the memory of that person that is gone. Okay, so if you look at your tears as a testimony to how much you love that person, or they loved you, or both, then you might say to yourself, I want to fill up a whole ocean full of my tears because you love that person so much. Okay? And so if you can look at crying differently, it may help you, to think differently about it and to want to cry for them. So it's kind of like you'll hear people say when they say, when they lose somebody and they spill out a drink for them, right? They dump a drink for them. Anyway, it's common, some cultures, some people do that, right? They do that, and that's in honor of that person, right? Instead of spilling out a drink or whatever, you could think of it like that, like with your tears are kind of like that. It's like you are honoring the person that you loved, and it is also cleansing and medicine for you. God created tears as a way for our bodies to be able to expel trauma, to expel sadness, or to be able to move emotions through. It's not to say that you won't feel that again or whatever, but it is normal. That is normal. That is normal is what I'm trying to get across. It is not normal to not cry. And, so I wanted to express that for sure. I, myself, decided that when I experienced the greatest, my greatest loss up till now, which was losing my late husband, which was my first husband, when he was 38 of a massive heart attack. He suffered a massive heart attack very suddenly and didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And I had also lost earlier that year my grandmother and then my grandfather, and I was very close to both of them because I was raised with them and I was very close to them. And up until that point, losing them was the most traumatic experience I had gone through in that way as far as loss goes, right? And then losing my husband after that, after those two, for me, did me in, emotionally speaking. And I remember feeling like well, I had a different outlook on life altogether. And so I'm sharing this because if you don't know me, you don't know, you can never tell with anybody. When you look at somebody, they don't come with a sign that says, I've been through XYZ, I've done this or that, I've experienced this or that or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, but experiencing an extreme grief, an amount of grief and sadness and loss very suddenly, and somebody that you loved very deeply. Again, my late husband was a soulmate for me. He was not abusive, mean, unloving. I didn't hate him. We were in a good place, and it was unexpected. Okay, and for a while after that, I had said to myself, I didn't want to get married again. I didn't want to even fall in love that deeply with anybody again because of a few reasons. Number one, I didn't want to have to hurt that bad. I didn't want to have to hurt and be brought to my knees with that type of pain ever again. And the only way I could ever do that is to not fall so deeply in love. Okay? And so I actually made that decision and thought it was a reasonable decision for a long time, for many years. Many years. So you can imagine, if you decide, between you and God, if you just say to yourself, okay, God, you know what? Since I have to be here on this earth and you keep waking me up every morning, even though I'm praying to see my late husband again and you're not answering that prayer, fine. Then I won't fall in love that deep. I will never fall in love that deep again, because I cannot, this body can't withstand that type of pain again. So life does go on after you lose somebody, especially if you have children and you have a reason, like you know you have to do what you need to do for them, right? And unfortunately, that decision though is like saying, I'm only, if I could have, on a scale of 1 to 10, if I could have a 10 being the greatest type of love, I'm on purpose going to only settle or only look for about a 5 or a 6 type of a love. So that way, when that person dies on me, okay, because here I am now experiencing loss at a young age, in my 30s, at a very young age, and saying, well, the next one's probably going to die on me again, and I don't want to hurt that bad, so I only want to experience a 5 or 6 type of love. I had a 10 once before. I don't want to get that. I don't want to get to that deep level of love again, ever again, because that hurt to lose that person, or they might die. So, and actually they will. We all know death and taxes is inevitable. We all know this. And I really know it because I experienced it. And 3 in 1 year. So, you can imagine the being 12 years removed from losing him, and even just saying that, I realize, that sounds crazy, right? It's like if you have the option to fall deeply in love with somebody, they're like, that's a 10. That would give you the happiness of a 10, but you choose to settle for a 5 or 6 on purpose so you won't miss them as much when they die. How ludicrous that sounds. It sounds like you're off your rocker, but it made sense to me at the time. Because I also felt like I never even wanted to attempt to replace that beautiful love that I had, because he was irreplaceable. And I would rather just meet him again on the other side, whatever that looked like. Okay? That is all part of grief. That is all part of grief. Grief stages, and depending on who you lose. It's obvious that if you lose a grandma, that you're not going around shopping for a new grandma when you go to Walmart, right? Or nobody else presents themselves in your life as a new grandma 9 times out of 10, right? And so it is a different grief experience losing a grandma or a grandpa, a brother or a sister or a child, than it is from even losing a spouse. Because especially if you are at a young age, or you still have life to live, okay? Or you're even halfway attractive, you're going to probably attract new suitors. And there's no way to speed up that grief process, because it's different for everybody. And imagine if it took as many years as you were with that person, and it took equally that many years for you to get over it. So if you're with that person for 15 years, and if it took you 15 years to get over them, so it's like saying, I'm going to go without love, or being touched, or going on dates, or I'm not even going to, whatever, for 15 years, because that's probably when I'm going to be over this person. Well, that doesn't make much sense either, right? Because that's not feasible if you were somebody like me who was widowed young. And there are young widows out there. I've met them. Not a lot, but I have met them. If you get the blessing of saying goodbye to your spouse, and you are up in age, and you don't have to live many years without that person, that is probably as good as it can get if you loved your spouse, if you love your spouse deeply, right? And so I'm sharing this because grief stages is different for everybody, and it will cause you to have, if you want to call or say, an awakening. For me, it was one of many, one of a couple. From what I've been told. But thankfully I already had a good relationship with my Heavenly Father, Jehovah God. And so I talked to him a lot, and I talked very real about this. And I said to him, fine, I need to find somebody, because, I have 2 boys and they need a father, and I can't stay single forever, but I don't want to hurt like this again. So I don't want to love as hard, because I can't go through this again. My heart physically cannot go through that type of loss again. And then, I did that, and then, quickly realized that was a decision made from a very unhealed version of myself, and a very unhealed place, right? And so I learned from that, like, that wasn't the answer, okay? That I wasn't living authentically myself, being with somebody who was only like, I was only in love with about a 5 or a 6. Because that wasn't working for me, being that I had already experienced a 10 type of love. 10. It wasn't actually, that was me moving from a place of hurt and pain. And not healed enough, right? And so, you know, I learned from that. And I'm bringing this up because a lot of times people move from their pain and they don't realize that that's what they're doing at the time because they can't see it. It does sometimes take you moving through experiences to come out better or different, or to make a different decision, right? But I also have no problem talking about these things with anybody who needs it. Anybody who needs this type of real talk. This is why I do have some very real friends, close friends of mine, that when we do talk, they know that I'm very real. They know that I'm very loving. They know that I understand. And, you know, they know that I can actually relate. I don't necessarily show and talk about all this stuff up front with people, right? Because it's usually not the time and place, especially if I'm doing makeup or something, right? But when people need to hear these types of things, it's important to understand that you're not alone when it comes to the grief process and when it comes to losing someone. When you lose somebody, it doesn't, a child or a spouse or anybody, you lose a piece of your heart, or you literally feel like you have a hole in your heart. And what I've come to realize is that that hole in your heart is a specific shape. Okay, so meaning, let's say, if you want to say like it's a heart, you know, like a heart shape or whatever for that person. That only that person's energy, only that person could ever feel again. You cannot try to replace that hole in your heart with anything or anybody else, because it ain't gonna fit. It's a square. It's just like that ball that you give kids that have all those different holes in them, that they got to put the right shape, they got to fit the right shape in, right? It's just like that. And when you accept that your heart is now a different shape because of the hole in it, it's not that you're not as good or whatever. If anything, you are more experienced in something new. It's kind of like battle scars. Some people wear their battle scars as a badge of pride, right? Or the unhealed person will try to hide their battle scars. But as you heal, you start to learn and understand that, no, I actually grew from this experience. Or if you do the healing, if you go through the healing processes, if you allow yourself to move through the emotions, and however long that takes, and all the different things that can come along with that, you actually can grow from them, and you actually do get stronger because of the scar, or because of the hole, whatever. It's like you have learned from that. You learn how to move differently, right? I also learned that I also made the decision after that decision, many years later, going through, coming out of the grief a lot more actually, I decided, you know what, I'm actually like putting a what's the word I want to say? It's like I'm hindering, stopping, or not even allowing as much love as I could have in my life out of fear of losing another love of my life, potentially. So I'm actually like pushing away or stopping a certain amount of love or whatever from coming and filling my heart again, right? So it was a decision I had to make inside of myself. Was I going to be real and authentic and try to, and find somebody, or try to find somebody that I really loved, truly in my heart, that I could be with and allow love completely 100% in my life again, or not. It was like, was I going to be afraid of the pain, or was I going to allow full, complete love? And after many years of not allowing it, or not wanting it, and being closed off, I realized that living that way, I actually wasn't living authentically to what I was used to, or what I even wanted. It didn't serve me. It wasn't good for me. So I made the decision to open up 100%. To look for the 10 type of love, okay? What I had experienced even once before with my first husband, and to not be afraid of losing that person, and moving through what I needed to move through, to understand that there will come a time and a place that everybody will experience grief of some sort, because death is a part of life on this planet, on this side of Armageddon, or whatever you want to say, whatever you believe in, right? But right now, currently, this is a part of our human experience, is life and death. And I decided that I wanted to live fully this experience and be in that moment authentically. And I would rather love harder and be 100% in the experience of loving somebody and being in love than to not. And one of the things that I had meditated on for a very long time, for many years, was my personal experience of when I went to the hospital and I had to see my late husband, who was in his 30s, lay on that deathbed in the hospital. And again, I was shocked by this, because he had had a sudden heart attack, and I didn't get to say goodbye. And so I was there for hours at the hospital. But I remember very distinctly, and this is what has stayed with me all these years, I'll never forget this fact. For me personally, what I was thinking that whole time that I was there, because I was there for hours, I remember looking at him, and I remember saying, or thinking to myself, and even to God, that there was no amount of negotiation, no amount of money. Literally, there was nobody. Not Jesus Christ is not here on earth right now. There was nobody that could change what I was looking at, which was my husband dead. They had worked on him for an hour, and it didn't work. They couldn't bring him back. And it was just time to say goodbye. It was, and people were coming. I had friends, family, I had people, everybody, was starting to pile into the hospital and to try to comfort me and whatever. But all I kept thinking was, it didn't matter how much money I had in the bank. It couldn't bring him back. It didn't matter who walked into that room. It didn't matter if I, cried to my mother, to my dad, who could usually fix any problem I ever had. They couldn't fix this one. And I remember feeling helpless. And I also remember being so glad, so happy though, that I actually didn't have any regrets. I had no regrets. I had told him I loved him, that morning, the night before, and I had lived fully in the experience with him. And the only thing you're left with, especially because I didn't have life insurance, we didn't have the life insurance at the time, the only thing I was left with was the memories of me and him, and my boys. But what I carry in my heart was the memories, and most of them were good. But the experience and the feeling that I got, the warmth and the love that I felt with him, is what I was left with. And this is what I thought about, and what I literally, if you want to say, meditated on, ruminated on, or this is what caused my, at that time, I guess it would be a second awakening, spiritual awakening, if you wanted to say. But I continue to think about that for many years, to the point that I decided that, you know what, anybody that I love, or anybody that I get with in the future, I want it to be real and authentic. I want it to be a 10. I want it to be a 10 type of love. And I wanted to live that experience 100% all the way through and not have no regrets with, either myself or no matter who passed first or any of that. I had to accept that this is a part of the reality of life that we live in, but I wanted to be in that experience. And so if I have to lose somebody again, I want to have no regrets and have happy memories. Have as many happy memories as I possibly could have with that person. I would rather be 100% all the way in love than to be faking and to not be in love. That being at a 5 or a 6 type of love was faking for me, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to live that way. It wasn't going to work for me. But I also had moved through quite a bit of different types of therapy. And I also feel like my parents, my mom especially, we were celebrated in our household. We were not shamed for being expressive or for sharing emotions or feelings or talking or anything. If anything, I had the kind of mom that would encourage it. And she would pop popcorn and sit down and talk to me. And so thankfully, I feel like I was giving a lot of tools in my toolbox to be able to finally push through something that was so hard for me. But in the end, it was also my relationship with God, because even with all of that, I had many days that I didn't want to push through. I still didn't want to push through. It was just that it wasn't that I had crazy thoughts for just leaving this earth like that. It was more or less this was my one person that I had a 10 with, that I had bonded with, and I just want to be wherever he is. God, that's what I would say to him. Jehovah, wherever you put my husband, I want to go there with him. Okay? And that's how I looked at it. But again, he kept reminding me that, in the Bible, when it talks about death breaks the marriage bond for a reason. And no, I had more stuff to do. I had more stuff to do here on this earth. So he was not going to allow that. In any case, so I carried my torture stake and decided to move through all of that. And it has taken on a very long journey, because that's been over 12 years now. And so I have many days, I don't really cry like that. Like the crying fits and the crying stages, the crying fits or times and all that. A lot of that is gone. That's gone now. But I'm not saying I don't shed a tear, but what I have decided to do was to embrace the feelings that I feel and that other people may feel. Sometimes I'm inadvertently find myself next to somebody who has just lost somebody. And this happened to me about a year or so ago. I was in AT&T store, and there was a woman older than me who had just lost her husband. And I guess she was coming in to give his phone back. I don't know all this. I don't know. I just overheard her. To me, I heard her. She was upset from the minute she came in, but she was trying to, I don't know, disconnect the phone, get rid of the phone. I don't know, give the phone back to them or something. Maybe she didn't want to pay for it. I don't really remember now. But whatever it was, she kept hitting a brick wall. The answer was no. It was no. And she was going back and forth with them about it. I just kind of heard that, and she was sad. But I could hear her. She was like, he's not even here anymore, whatever. And it had just happened within the last month or so. And I could see her, but I could feel her pain. I could feel, because the way she was talking and how she was talking, what she was saying was more or less, it was more grief. Even though what she was saying, it didn't make sense and she couldn't get whatever. But I heard her pain, and I stopped what I was doing and went right over to her and hugged her and held her hand. And I told her, first of all, I understand how you feel. But listen, sister, you're hitting a brick wall. They're not taking this phone back for a reason. I said, have you gone through his phone? Have you looked through his phone? And she was like, no, I don't want to. And I said, okay, you don't want to today. But trust me, you will want to in time, when it's the right time. And God does not want you to get rid of this phone right now. That's why they're not taking it back. You're not going to get your way. There's love in this phone that you may not know about. That when it's the right time, it will be a gift. And she started crying and she started bawling, And I hugged her, and she took the phone and put it in her purse, and she was like, you're right. You're right. I was just trying to get rid of it. Like, she wanted to get rid of the memories and everything. I said, no. You loved him? She said, yeah. I said, you loved him? He loved you? You can't get rid of love like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to work through it. God doesn't want you to get rid of it, And she accepted it, and so we exchanged, hugs and everything. And but that has happened to me many times, right? Where I'm able to more than relate, but I'm able to even absorb somebody else's pain and feelings in the moment, because it doesn't scare me anymore. I'm no longer scared by that. Understanding that I know how to move through the feelings of what she's feeling, and I'll be able to release it because I have practiced that now. It's kind of like when people don't like to go to funerals. Well, first of all, it's not like anybody wakes up and says, I want to go to a funeral. But I know for me, I have avoided funerals for a very long time because it was like, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with it. Everybody, being sad or whatever. And so I had to go through 3 of them in 1 year. And even I've experienced even a few others with other people, right? And now understanding it really is a celebration of their life. If you love that person, that this is, and it is actually okay. And it is actually more of a testimony. It is actually something that can be embraced. If you are okay with and you allow your feelings to come through and you allow yourself to have tears and to understand that this is a part of your medicine to your soul, right? And so for me, though, to come to a place where it's like, no, I want to be fully engulfed in love and to create these good memories. That's where I was about 2 years ago. 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago. Coming out of the second marriage, and was like, I wanted to work on some things myself, financially speaking, as far as my job or whatever. I had some goals, some things I wanted to do. But I had also started to, had realized that I didn't want to have a halfway type of a love. I wanted to be authentic and accept and embrace love fully whenever it presented itself. And be thankful for that. And love did present itself to me. Or I thought it was love. And, I believe that it was on some side, but in some way. But anyway, me not understanding everything with red flags and mental instability and hidden bipolar or undiagnosed bipolar or undiagnosed issues and things that people sometimes have present like narcissism or whatever and all of that. Yeah. So in any case, my willingness to accept real love kind of, you know, made me trip and fall into a situation that God did try to warn me and tell me that it, you know, it was a no, but I didn't listen, and I tried to be whatever. So I won't talk about that so much, but you know, the point is that that's how I kind of did that. And still I decided though that even with that situation, and even with being not told all the information or whatever, that I would still leave my heart open for a 10 type of love. And you know, I did meet somebody also for about a year or so, and because I made that decision that if it presented myself, if love presented itself to me, I was going to accept it, because I want to have an open heart. I want to willingly receive love and give love. If genuine love is what I'm getting, then I want to be able to receive it and give it back always. Genuine and being authentic and 100% if I feel that way. And so that is the reason why when you come from that place where you understand life is so fleeting, life can go so fast, you know, people go through a lot of things, and sometimes you don't get the opportunity to say goodbye. You don't get the opportunity to say I love you one more time. Because I come from that place now, I don't take those things for granted, and I allow myself to live authentically. So if the words I love you just kind of fall out of my mouth to whoever, it could be, you know, like a friend, family, whatever, it doesn't matter. I allow that to be said. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are, you know, depending on who it is or whatever, like if it's a guy or something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to just marry that person or whatever. But it is being authentic when you allow love to flow, or what you are feeling, and when you allow that to happen, okay, and you don't take it seriously, like when you were younger, like, oh my God, if you love somebody, whatever, that just, you can love somebody and love them from a distance. You can love somebody and not be with them. I mean, when I talked about this on a video a few months ago, I posted about saying I love you, and even sharing that, saying I love you to a friend, you know, to, you know, people in general. Like I shared love with that lady at the AT&T store, right? Being loving, right? It's just allowing love to flow when you are feeling moved to do that. So you have no regrets, and you feel no regrets, and you're living more authentically, right? When I shared that video earlier, it was because I could always tell when people have gone through something serious or have gone through something very traumatic. It always, to me, it shows in their life, in how real and in the moment, and how readily available they're able to accept love, or how okay they are with seeing love and expressing love, right? And after that video, I did receive actually a couple I love yous text messages. It was very sweet, and it was very moving too, because I felt like these are not people that I married, and it wasn't like that. But to me, it was that person being authentic and saying, you know, I love you, and understanding that you may not be here tomorrow, But I want to know that I've said that to you, right? And I appreciate it that I got these text messages, and I said I love you back to them because I did. I feel a form of love for that person. People. But the farther and longer away that I have gone from this experience of losing my husband and losing all three, my grandmother and my grandfather, I was very close to, especially my grandma. I think about my grandma every day. Every day. There's not one day that goes by I don't think about my grandma. But that year was such a hard year for me, coming off of some other hard things that I went through. It just seriously changed me. And coming off of that, coming away from that, I have continued to grow and continue to move through these stages, and just have made the decision that I want to always live authentically. Now, I also would have said the same thing even prior to him passing, but that's because of the way that I was raised, to not push your feelings down, to not fake, and don't wear a mask. My mother taught me those things, right? But there is a difference in where I'm coming from now versus then. Then it was a lot of me defending myself, maybe even putting up some whatever fight. My fangs might come out even more, or whatever. I was way more feisty and sassy, and feeling like I had to maybe fight for things or whatever, and not, just saying whatever I wanted to say, whatever, and being authentic in that way, right? Now there is a more softness and understanding, because I'm still that way. I can still be that way too, but I'm still authentic, but now it's more authentic in love, and because I always think to myself, there is not one time when I love somebody or I care about somebody, the truth is that when you've experienced a sudden loss, I feel like, maybe not everybody goes through this, but I feel like you never lose track of the fact that when you say goodbye to somebody, whether it be in person, over the phone, or in text, that may in fact be the last time that you say goodbye to them. And that's just a part of life, right? And as intense of a reality that may be to live in, it is my reality. And for me to run from that, or try to hide from that truth, or try to be anything but that, would be me not living authentic. And so, because of that, most people that I meet, most partners, most potential partners that I have met, don't know how to interpret that. They don't know how to digest that. They don't know how to handle that. And that's okay. That's okay. In fact, I actually don't expect most men especially to be able to handle that. There have been some, but I remember reading in a book, or reading or hearing somewhere, I don't know if it was years ago, from a widow. It was another widow sharing her experience, saying that it wasn't until she met another widow that she fell in love again, and she was able to do that again, because the two of them both had the same understanding, and neither one of them was afraid to mention or talk about the other person without feeling a sense of insecurity or a sense of jealousy over a dead person, which happens because people who have not lost somebody have a hard time checking in, or have a hard time understanding the concept that to deny that person's name, especially if you have kids by that person, or to try to hide or not talk about that person or whatever, would be not only not authentic, but it would also be unloving. It's also mean. It's also cruel. That's like trying to make a whole, for me, 17 years of my life disappear. That's not going to happen. Some men who are not insecure, they're fine with that. I also realize that a lot of people just don't know much about me. They don't, they only know this Melinda here that's been here in Atlanta, who's been doing makeup or whatever. And I have 2 kids, but more than that, the majority of my marriage, really was happy. The majority of my marriage was very happy. We were very close. We were best friends. But also the majority of my childhood, I could very much say, was very happy. Was very real. I had 2 very good parents, strong parents. They were very godly, and they were very loving. My parents loved each other, and I didn't see bad treatment growing up or anything like that. I didn't see bad treatment. And then I had my grandparents for the longest time, on both sides of the family. For a long time. I lost my grandmother. Like I said, I was 30. I was 30 in my 30s. It was the same year that I lost Travis. And so, I was an adult. So I got to utilize a lot of time with my family, with my grandparents. I know a lot of people don't get to say that these days. I realize it's because I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of family. I have friends. And people that I know today, my age now, whatever, that they don't get to say that. They don't get to say that they were raised with a halfway decent family. They weren't raised with, high moral standards. They weren't raised with a father in the house, in a stable environment. Then it's not that my parents or my family, not that we were perfect, but we also had God, and God and His love and spirituality. My dad used the Bible to discipline, and that filled in all the gaps for wherever you're lacking. And that's what the scriptures say. The scriptures say that in Proverbs. I think it's in Proverbs. It says, is it Proverbs or is it Psalms? Where he says, I will finish your training. The Jehovah God will finish your training. I think, let me see if I can find it. I gotta find it. Maybe it wasn't that word, but let's see. 1 Timothy 4, verse 8, it says, "For physical training is beneficial for a little, but godly devotion is beneficial for all things. It holds promise of the life now and the life that is to come." See, so, this is the scripture I was thinking of, but this is a good scripture. 1 Timothy 4, verse 8. "For physical training is beneficial for a little," or you could say, physical training, like parents, having your parents and all that. It is good for a little, but godly devotion is beneficial for all things. And my parents taught me godly devotion. They taught me that. So that was beneficial for all things, and it holds out the promise for life now and the life to come. Okay, and so I believe in that. I absolutely believe in that. My parents also, a lot of people see, this is the other thing I've heard, they were, let's say, for example, they were forced to go to Catholic school or to go to some sort of Christian school or whatever, and they were forced to learn, certain things by memorization or whatever, but they didn't actually get a relationship with God. My parents' approach to the Bible, God, spirituality, and everything was very much to make it my own, to have a relationship with God formed by myself, you know, so that I could stand with God. Understanding that my parents, I didn't have to go through my parents to get to God. So my parents were always talking to me and always honing in on that with me. I'm gonna give you an example. I remember when what something I did with my son. When my oldest was 3 years old. I think he was older than 3. He was about maybe 7 or 8. I think he was about 7. Maybe it was 6. I don't know. Anyway, I remember being at the house in our home, and we had bought some bird food for a bird feeder in our backyard. And so I let the kids, I think we painted it or something. We painted the bird feeder, and I was letting them, it was like a little project we were doing at the house, and then they got to put bird food in the bird feeder, and then we put it outside. Anyway, my older son, Jaden, I let him go do it. He hung it up outside, you know, and I remember he hung it up, and he said to me, when we came back inside the house, and we were in front of the window where we could see the bird feeder hanging up. So we were sitting at the table in front of the window where we could see it. And my son said to me, he said, "Mom, how are the birds going to know that there's food there?" He was like, because, you know, at this point, you know, it's been like 3 minutes, okay? 3 or 4 minutes. And he was getting anxious. He wanted to see birds right away go to the house, to the birdhouse. And so he was saying that to me. He said, "Mom, how the birds going to know that there's bird food there for them? How are they going to know?" Because he's looking around. He's like, "I don't see no birds. I don't see them," right? And I said, "Jaden, God tells them. God tells them. He tells them that there's food here for them. They're gonna come. Don't worry." And he was like, "Oh." I said, "You know what? Why don't we go ahead and pray to God?" I said, "You go ahead and say a prayer to God. Tell Jehovah God that you want him to tell the birds that there's bird food in the house waiting for them, and you know, tell God that you're anxious, whatever." So anyway, that's what I said to him, and so he did. He said a prayer, you know, and he was like, I wish I got it on video, but anyway, it was so cute. I just remember him doing something like, "Okay, dear Jehovah God, please, you know, tell the birds that we got bird food for them, and it's very good, and there's a lot of different seeds," stuff like that. Okay, so he was talking in his, he had to be maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. He was young. And so he was saying that prayer, telling God that, and I was like, okay, so trying to be serious about this prayer, I was bowing my head and praying too. Okay, so it was like, okay, yes, we're praying, and I was like this, listening to him, and in the middle of him praying, he was like, so my eyes are closed, but this is what I hear: "Oh my God, thank you, Jehovah." So I opened my eyes and I looked, because I'm like, the prayer's not, you know, like, he didn't say in Jesus Christ, like, you know, it wasn't done. I look, and all of a sudden we see out of the the window, all of these birds, all of these black birds. We saw every color. I remember bluebirds, blackbirds, red. It was like all these birds, but especially it was a lot of blackbirds, because I remember, because it was like probably crows or something, I don't know, but there was tons of blackbirds lining our fence. But there were so many birds that were flying onto the bird feeder, and they were hitting it. I mean, literally, the bird feeder, the birdhouse, was swinging around, and bird food was flying out. It was swinging around because there were so many birds going at it. Crazy. And I remember getting chills, knowing that my God, our God, your God, heard my son and wanted to make sure that he impressed upon his heart that day that God heard him talk to him. Because Jaden said to me, he was like, "Oh my God, thank you, Jehovah, for telling them." Good. And so he just accepted that, yeah, God heard him. God just told him. He prayed to God, he asked him, and God told the birds, and here they are. And so, for me, I looked at that as a little miracle, right? But these were the types of things that I grew up knowing and seeing. And I tried to pass some of that down onto my own children. Oh goodness, it's going on. This is going to be a long video. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to cut it in half. In any case, I know that you guys don't know a lot about me. Or you might just know that I do makeup. Or maybe that I like to hustle. I do a lot of things. And now I have a license in selling health and life insurance, which I'm very proud of that. Because that is a very hard test to pass. It's a very hard training. To me, it was hard. I mean, some people pass it right away. I passed it. It took me 2 times, but you know, I've had people who told me they took them 6 times. Actually, I found out today one of my managers took them 6 times to pass the test. So anyway, I'm very proud, but it is hard. A lot of people don't pass right away. But anyway, I did, and I'm very happy. And so anyway, I'm in a new company for that and whatnot. I'm doing that now and everything. And so there's a lot of different things that I do. I know that you know, I have a lot of layers. I have a lot of layers to me because of the experience and life experiences that I've gone through. And when you've gone through a lot of life experiences, or you've been through anything traumatic especially, and you were able to come through it victorious, or you were able to come through it better or stronger, yeah, that's going to be a part of who you are. It may make you a little bit more intense, but I am not ashamed of that, and I don't plan on downplaying or weakening any of my intensity for anyone. Or I don't plan on not living authentically. It don't matter that I've been through a couple of rough love experiences the last couple of years. My heart is still open. And I realize, even to me, like I said, I wear it as a badge of honor. And sometimes I'm reminded by somebody I'm with, or whoever I'm talking to, or whatever. Like I had a friend I was talking to the other day, yesterday. And I feel like, for me personally, it is a strength. And it showed me how far I've come in my healing journey. When sometimes I hear, or when I talk to other people, I realize, and I'm thankful for the experiences and being able to come through them. And I hope to be encouraging to anyone out there who stumbles on any of my words and my videos. I hope that you get some encouragement. In the same scripture, 1 Timothy 4, I just had read 8. It says, this is kind of interesting. It says, in verse 11, it says, keep on giving these commands and teachings to them. Never let anyone look down on your youth. Instead, become an example to the faithful ones in speaking, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in chasteness. Until I come, talking about Jesus, until I come, continue applying yourself to public reading, exhortation, and to teaching. Do not neglect the gift in you that was given through a prophecy when the body of elders laid hands on you. This is for Timothy, because remember, Timothy was a young prophet. He was a young teacher, and a lot of people, I'm sure, felt like he didn't have experience because of his youth, but yet he was given the gift of prophecy And Jehovah did give that to him. And he was saying, don't forget that. It says, don't let anyone look down on your youth. Instead, become an example of faithfulness in speaking and in your conduct and in your love. We know that God is love. We know the scriptures say God is love. And so if you want to know God, if you want to get close to God, you have to accept love in your life. And you have to be willing to give love and accept love if you want to grow closer to God. It's literally no way of being close to God or being a friend of God or being able to walk with God and not be loving, not be open-hearted. And so for me, I just said it's for me. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my intensity, and I'm okay with choosing to not have any regrets. If I decide to love somebody or be with somebody, and I choose to make sure that every day I don't have any regret in expressions or showing love fully while I'm in this experience or living this human experience right now on earth. It's just who I am. Okay, I've talked way too long. Bye.